Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you with a review of Vengeance. This would be a 2000 and, what the hell year is this? 2007. I was going to say 2006 for some reason, but I think that was the year that DX was running around like crazy. I mostly remember that because of the DX cover. And then if you bought the 2006 Vengeance and came with a bonus disc of all the stuff that DX was doing on Monday Night Raw, it was a pretty good steal. I know with the WWE Network, which is how I watched this episode of Vengeance, you basically get everything, but that's sort of one of those things that if I was ever going to be getting to the point of getting rid of those pay-per-view DVDs because I'm not watching them anymore, the Vengeance show is probably one that I would keep around just because of that special bonus disc on the side. For this year, they still called the show Vengeance, but it had sort of like a subheading to go along with it. It was for the Night of Champions. And with the Night of Champions deal, the gimmick is every title that was on the roster seemed like it was going to be on the line in some sort of a match, which sort of made this pay-per-view a little bit more special than everything else, because even WrestleMania, when it came down to it, not all the championships would be on the line for WrestleMania. I mean, when was the last time you saw the United States Championship defended on a WrestleMania show? Hell, when was the last time you even saw the tag titles defended on a WrestleMania show? But this was back in the day when you still had the brand split, so they were able to have 10 matches because you had the WWE Championship, you had the World Heavyweight Championship, WWF Tag Team Championships, World Tag Team Championships, Intercontinental title, United States title, Divas title, Women's title. A fuckload of matches on this show. I thought that honestly, once the show was over, I thought that I was pretty entertained. Some matches on here that just really didn't matter. They had some other matches on the show that seemed like they should have been a bigger deal than it was. Lots of things sort of gloomed over this show at this point. I'm not sure if it was the Monday before or if it was a week before on Monday Night Raw was the episode where Vince McMahon had blown up in the limo explosion, and Mr. McMahon was basically dead at this point, but there were things that were going down in the world as this pay-per-view was going down that basically, I believe it was the Monday that they went live. I think it was basically the next day, Vince McMahon opened up Monday Night Raw in front of a open arena with nobody in it, because basically they had shut down the show. They were still producing a show to put on Monday Night Raw, but they weren't letting the fans in. They'd sent all the performers home. It was just basically some camera people and Vince McMahon. They had pre-shot some interviews because the Chris Benoit tragedy had happened during this show. He was supposed to be on it wrestling CM Punk for the ECW Championship. I believe they had set up some sort of a tournament in order to these guys to go at it, because I can't remember why the ECW Championship didn't have a champion. Maybe it was because Bobby Lashley had left and he was on Monday Night Raw, or something like that. Maybe they didn't want to beat Lashley on the way out because they wanted him to seem like he was a big deal, because in this match he has later on with John Cena, they're really pushing the fact of Cena versus Lashley as to see who the biggest guy on Monday Night Raw is. If I had to guess, I think that's what's going to happen. So sort of weird events that are going down in between each matches, everybody sort of weighing in and giving their thoughts on Vince not being there. There's even a point when Edge comes up behind John Cena, trying to sort of goat him into, get in his head, where, just say who the better champion is. And basically, John Cena makes fun of Edge, saying that Edge never really had the balls to really, do anything really deceiving. He's not as bad as he thinks he is. And Edge gives this killer promo about how he would kill people, and he'd do whatever he had to do to keep his championship. And basically Cena sort of laughs in his face and then points over his shoulder, and there's the lead detective trying to figure out who killed Vince McMahon. And the detective takes Edge away for, to sort of interrogate him to see what was going down and what he was doing on Monday when Vince died. It's sort of funny. At one point during the show, they put a poll up of who We're supposed to go to WWE.com and we're supposed to vote on who we think killed Vince McMahon. And the people are Shane, Linda, Stephanie, Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena. I think the internet had blown up about everybody seeing Paul London mugging for the camera, so Paul London was on there. Jerry the King Lawler is poring over the videotape of all the times that Vince McMahon had the chance of not getting that limousine. Basically, Vince walks out of the arena, he turns and he looks back at the building like he's going to go back, and then once he gets to the car, he looks to the arena again, then he grabs for the door handle and he pulls it, and then he sort of lets go, and then he opens again, and then you see once he gets into the car before the explosion, he steps his foot out, and they're saying, did he see somebody in the limousine? Did he see the bomb in the limousine? What made him put his foot down trying to get out? And they're just going over it, and just basically this was an angle that they just blew up to the point where they had to reuse it, and they reshot it again for Coachman to run out and tell Vince that he had a son, and I believe that's what the summer angle was of this year. Matches on the show start out pretty good. Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch wrestled against the Hardys. Always thought they were a really good tag team, and for some reason I can never wrap my mind around Lance Cade not being with us anymore. I always liked Cade and Murdoch as a tag team. I wouldn't put them in my top 10 tag teams of all time, but when they didn't have the straps on Monday Night Raw, I thought they were really a believable team, and I thought that once the team broke up, I really thought that Cade had a chance to go on and do something. Never really understood Murdoch's singing gimmick that came out of all of this when he was singing to Mickie James. Only thought basically it was just going to be where Cade would stab Murdoch in the back and take Mickie away, but Murdoch was out there singing on the announce table, if you remember that stuff. But, I don't know, whenever I see Murdoch, whenever I see Cade, my mind immediately goes to, man, I wonder what that guy's doing right now. And I don't know why I can't get that in my head that he's dead, but he left us a few years ago, and it's just a shame. I thought he had a lot of wrestling. And I don't know if what they were doing when they stuck Cade with Jericho was going to lead to Michaels versus Cade or anything like that, but I think he would have had a bright future if he was still around. This is the not disqualification, but an interference sort of finish in this one, where basically the referee tries to break up a Hardy double team, and because of that, the heels are able to do an actual double team, where I believe Cade pushes Hardy off of the top rope, and because of that, Murdoch gives him the power bomb, and you get a 1-2-3 sort of cheat finish from the heels. From there, you go to Chavo Guerrero wrestling against Jimmy Wang Yang. Chavo Guerrero wins, and he keeps his Cruiserweight Championship. The third match of the night, we don't really get an explanation to where Chris Benoit is and why he didn't make it to the match, but basically they fill him in with Johnny Nitro, who would become John Morrison. Johnny Nitro surprisingly wins and beats CM Punk. It sort of shows you that maybe WWE, I guess you know this from watching the Punk documentary, had no thoughts of ever pushing CM Punk. Basically, he was just sort of going to be a guy that they featured, but never really wanted to put a belt on him and make him mean anything. I think the only reason why Punk ever won the ECW championship more than likely is because he had a match being built up as his last chance against John Morrison, and when the match was about to take place, Morrison failed a drug test. They were going to have to suspend him for 30 days, so they took that opportunity to beat Punk. And then if you remember, Punk held the championship for a while, and then he lost to Chavo. As a fan, I was always sort of weirded out by why Punk couldn't beat Chavo. It just was you had a squash match between Santino and Umaga, where basically Umaga won the match when he just continued to beat down on Santino and wouldn't let up, to the point where Maria had to run out from the back in order to make the save. And that was weird because Santino played the babyface here, and I didn't think that Santino and Maria got together until they were until Santino was heel. So I'll have to brush up on my Santino history from back in the day. MVP wrestled against Ric Flair. Wish I could say it was a good match, but it wasn't. Deuce and Domino fought against Jimmy Snuka and Sergeant Slaughter for the WWE Tag Team Championships, the SmackDown Championship brand. In between each match, they would show a legend in the ring. You had the U.S. Express were out there, Mike Rotundo, and Fuck, I forgot his tag team partner. But, he was out there. Magnum TA was out there before each match. These guys would stand up. And before the match, Deuce and Domino delivered a promo against Gurria and Rick Martel, sitting at ringside. And basically, they couldn't take enough, and they jumped over the rail. And they started to beat up on Deuce and Domino as they ran away. But it was fun to see Jimmy Snuka get to wrestle his son on this show, even though Snuka and Slaughter couldn't do a whole bunch in this match. From there, they built up Edge versus Batista, which was going to be his last chance at the title, because Edge kept on finding ways to get past Batista, and they were making it seem like people were getting bored with seeing Batista versus Edge, so they had to retire the match and move on from there. And if Batista wasn't going to be able to get the title from here, he wasn't going to have a shot. During this match, there was a point when Edge felt that the Batista bomb was coming, so he gave a low blow, which disqualified himself against Batista. Batista would get the win, but Edge would keep the championship. He made it almost all the way to the back. He was at the top of the ramp when Teddy Long came out, said he was going to restart the match, and if Edge got disqualified again, he would lose the championship. Edge came running down. Him and Batista wrestled around for a while. Edge ended up taking a count out and retaining the title that way. From there, we had Candice versus Melina. Honestly, a very surprising, very good match. There was a time when I thought the Divas division had some hot chicks that really could wrestle. Melina and Candice. Candice was always one of my favorite girls, and it seemed like the longer she was in WWE, she just got better. And I think a lot of people have sort of forgotten about this time period of women's wrestling, that when, I don't know if whoever the agent was that was working with them, but the girls were really having good matches. It seemed like they were just creating good matches along the way, and they always came out. And then in the main event, we saw which was called the WWE Championship Challenge. It was John Cena having a match against King Booker, Bobby Lashley, Mick Foley, and Randy Orton. I don't know what set up Mick Foley's return to wrestling here, but of course they always play off against Mick Foley and Randy Orton, the big time feud between these guys. You see King Booker is just sort of a guy in this match, mostly I think just because he was a former champion on Raw, they put him in there. And then Bobby Lashley against John Cena seems to be like, who's going to be the bigger name? They were trying to really push Bobby Lashley as being the number one guy, and both of them were really built up, jacked as a house. It's sort of Royal Rumble 1990 stuff. We see Lashley and Cena look at each other a couple of times. We never really see him touch. But there is a time when Lashley sort of gets whipped into Cena, and Cena picks him up and hits the attitude adjustment on Lashley and puts him through the announce table, which sort of takes him out of the match. Match sort of ends just sort of out of the middle of nowhere, as a lot of these matches did, with Cena hitting the attitude adjustment on Foley and pinning him in the middle of the ring. Kind of weird seeing the babyface pin the babyface. But I honestly thought this was a great show. One of the best sets they've ever had. One of the best sets they've ever built. And I'm sort of looking forward to going from here and watching Vengeance 2007. And seeing, well, it wouldn't be Vengeance 2007, I apologize. It would be Night of Champions 2007. That's the reason why I'm watching it, is to knock out some of the reviews on the way to counting down to the Night of Champions pay-per-view coming up with John Cena against Brock Lesnar, which, of course, you can see on the WWE Network for only $9.99. Peace out, everybody. This is a good show. Go check it out if you get some time.